Hello, and we've made it to the final shape in the modal system. This is kind of based on the cage system, I guess. So we started on the first chord where we built the major scale itself. Second chord where we built the Dorian scale. From here to the third chord, the Phrygian. Fourth scale, the Lydian. Fifth chord, we built the Mixolydian, and so now we're at the sixth. So the sixth chord is a minor chord, and the scale we're going to build from this should be known to most guitarists. It's actually the minor scale. So when we get to the sixth chord in the sequence and we build a scale around the sixth chord, it's the minor scale that most people know. What most guitarists don't seem to realise is the minor scale is actually part of a bigger system, and then hopefully by learning this bigger system, then that becomes more clear. But I'll just quickly run through the scale first. So the minor scale. So let's do our point of references first. We've got our minor chord. We have our minor seventh. And that's with the high note. So the minor seventh has got a flattened seventh in it, so we should be expecting to see that interval in the scale shape. So we can also build our pentatonic here, and again, for me, this is a really useful reference. So basically, I see the minor scale as a pentatonic or a minor pentatonic with two notes added, and the two notes this time round is second, and then this note here, which is the flattened sixth. Okay, and that's to be found here. So that'll be the flattened sixth, and that'll be the second, and that'll be the second. So let's just quickly build it. So I'm going I'm going 12, 14, 15, 12, 14, 15, 12, 14, 11, 12, 14, 12, 13, 15, 12, 14, 15. So in terms of the exercise we've been doing, we should be able to break this scale down. So the lower two strings, I'm using my first finger, my third finger, my fourth finger. And there we go, that pattern is found again. If I go down to the G string and the B string, and this time round I'm going to use my first, second and third finger. Then I'll skip the pattern forward one fret. I could also do it with my first finger, my second finger and fourth finger. So again, before you tackle the scale, it's very useful to break it down into those little patterns. And then if you do that for a few minutes, then once you glue the whole thing together, it should be fairly easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call out the intervals. You should be able to call out the intervals as well. So we start with the first, a second, a flattened third. We have a fourth, fifth, flattened sixth, seventh, octave, first, second, flattened third, fourth, fifth, flattened sixth, flattened seventh, octave. So just do it one more time. So first, second, flattened third, fourth, fifth, flattened sixth, flattened seventh, octave, first, second, flattened 7th, octave. So in terms of improvising, again, a really easy approach to take is to start with your pentatonic and then start adding some flavour notes in. And to me, this scale sounds very classic. So you don't really find this scale so much in jazz and blues. You'd probably find the Mixolydian and the Dorian scale more often used. It's not strictly true, but it's a rule of thumb. And you tend to find this scale a bit more used in something like, I don't know, heavy metal, I guess, and anything that's gothic and moody. So classic kind of example tunes, it's been done to death, but it is the classic. It's something like Stairway to Heaven, and it's worth just looking at the final chord sequence in Stairway to Heaven. It's in A minor. But the final chord sequence goes from the 6th chord down to the 5th chord, down to the 4th chord in the key. So that's a fairly classic chord progression, and the opening lick in the solo. So it's a fairly standard pentatonic phrase but he lands. But what makes it interesting is he lands on the flattened 6th when he ends the phrase, and it gives the phrase a bit more of a twist than if he had just stuck to the pentatonic. Another example that's not so much classic rock would be, and it's in the same key, funny enough, is A Forest by The Cure. So if we look at the riff to that one, goes up to the octave, goes to the flattened 6th, to the 5th, to the flattened 6th. And that's in a minor key as well, and as I say, and the thing that gives it away that it's in a minor key is this interval here, the flattened 6th. Yeah, I mean, there's so many musical examples of it. It's ridiculous. But another one that's probably worth knowing about is Black Magic Woman, because I suppose this breaks the rule that I was talking about. It's an example of a minor blues, and what it uses is it takes the parent scale and it uses all the minor chords from it, and they're pretty easy to find, because if I go, so if I make a minor chord there, then I move down and make an A shape just under it, that's the next one, and then I move it 2 frets up, and that's how you find the minor chords in a minor key. And the chords to Black Magic Woman, and that's it. It just uses the minor chords from it's going to be D minor. And what's interesting about the solo is Santana, he plays pentatonic, but you hear him bring in the flavour notes that I'm talking about. And then he does this little lick. So you can see he's bringing in the flavour note there, and he's jumping to the flavour notes there. So, and it's useful knowing the minor scale is used in a minor blues. So what would typically happen is you've got the first chord in the sequence. So you'd stick to something that's fairly pentatonic, but then when it moves up to this chord here, so if I move my fingers apart from that one, it contains the extra note that I was talking about, the flavour note, the flattened sixth note. So when it moves up to that chord, what is useful to do is target that note there and try and play a phrase that brings in that interval. So that is an example when you probably would use a minor scale in a minor blues, but you'd use it sparingly. You'd choose your moment when you wanted to target that note, and it would normally be when it moves over to this chord here, because that note is contained in that chord. You know, it sounds great. So that was just me messing around, but hopefully you could hear from my phrasing, I was trying to target the chord notes, you know, in each particular, the chord notes when you know, to outline the changes when I'm soloing, so the solo made more, you know, melodic sense. So I've only got really one more important thing to say about the minor scale. There's this whole concept of relative minor, and basically the relative minor is basically the minor scale that's built from the sixth note of the parent key. So we're in the key of G major. We get to its sixth chord, which is here. And we can build out our minor scale from here. And if you look, the third note in this scale is G. So if we start from here, that's where we would build the G major scale from. Now if I start from G, but I go up the minor shape, so you can see it's exactly the same notes, but they just start from a different place and they have a different home chord, but they sound completely different. If I change the home chord to here, you know, we've got something that sounds minor and dark. If I change the home chord to G, and it sounds completely different, and it's exactly the same notes. So that's called the relative minor, and the easy way to find it, if you build a major chord somewhere and you're going, I want to find the relative minor, stick your little finger on it and then have all your fingers go down, one per fret, and then your first finger is going to be the relative minor, and this will work anywhere on the neck. So if I'm here, put my little finger down there, the relative minor is here. And there's also a song that makes it, for me, very easy to remember, and that's Entertainment by the Jam. And it just changes between G and E minor. And I could repeat repeat that anywhere on the neck. So I'm here, so let's do it for B. Okay, and if I put my fingers down, okay, I found it, that's the minor. And that's how I'd find the relative minor shape. But that's basically, so you've got this concept of relative minor, but basically it's pretty much the same concept of modes. All of these shapes that we've looked at are basically different ways of expressing and using a key. You know, it's all of these notes are basically the same notes as G major in, but what we've done is we've tweaked them around, we've changed the home chord, and we've started from a different note, and we've gone okay, and that's how we get this concept of modes from. And that's it. So they're all, they're all kind of related. You could say that's the relative Dorian to G, but it's just that one gets called the relative minor, and it is kind of important in music theory to know that. But that's kind of beyond the scope of this video. But you should just be aware of that one. So the relative minor is always built around the sixth chord of a parent key. Okay, and the notes are exactly the same, they're just played in a different order with a different emphasis. So the sixth key, or the sixth chord would be the emphasis, the home chord. And that is it in terms of scale shapes. What I'm going to do next is look at ways that we can link them together and then distinguish the modes, and then that should give you enough material to start playing with your improvisations. So see you soon.